Welcome back to EtherLink AI Insights. I'm Alex, and today we're diving into something that's reshaping how enterprises actually work. We're talking about AI agents and what's being called Utrecht's digital worker revolution. Sam, this is a pretty big shift from what we've been discussing about chatbots in the past, right?
Absolutely, Alex. And honestly, it's not just Utrecht. This is happening across Europe and globally. But what's interesting is the framing here. We're moving from passive chatbots that just answer questions to autonomous digital workers that actually manage workflows. It's a fundamental mindset change in how enterprises think about AI.
So let's break that down for our listeners. When you say autonomous digital workers, what does that actually mean in practice? Like, what's the difference between a traditional chatbot and what you're calling an AI agent?
Great question. A traditional chatbot is reactive. Someone asks it something, and it retrieves an answer. Done. An AI agent, on the other hand, can autonomously complete multi-step workflows across different systems, make contextual decisions using real-time data, and escalate intelligently when needed. It's proactive, not reactive. Think of it this way. A chatbot answers, "Where's my order?" An AI agent accesses your inventory system, checks with logistics partners, calculates delivery windows, and offers alternatives if there are delays. That's the difference.
That's a pretty dramatic difference. I imagine that changes what customer service teams actually do with their day. Are they just sitting around waiting for the AI to mess up?
Exactly. And that's actually one of the most important shifts. Instead of handling repetitive queries all day, your support team moves to managing exception cases and relationship building, the work that actually requires human judgment and empathy. It's not about replacing people, it's about freeing them up for higher value work.
Okay, so the human element stays. But let's talk numbers because I know our listeners want to understand the actual business case. What are we seeing in terms of ROI for organizations that make this shift?
This is where it gets compelling. Forrester Research found that organizations deploying agent-first operations for customer service saw a 45% reduction in handling time and 38% lower cost per interaction compared to traditional chatbots. For a mid-sized enterprise handling 50,000 support interactions annually, that's $180,000 to $240,000 in annual savings. That's real money.
Wow, $180K to $240K annually, that's not peanuts. But I'm curious, Sam, is it just about cost reduction? Are there revenue impacts too?
Absolutely. And this is where it gets interesting. Gartner found that 52% of enterprises using multimodal AI agents for sales and customer engagement increased customer lifetime value by 18 to 27%. That's not just saving money. That's actively making more money through intelligent upselling, proactive problem resolution, and personalized interactions that chatbots simply can't deliver.
So we're talking about both sides of the profit equation. But here's what I'm wondering. Implementation sounds complex. How long does it actually take to see these returns? Are we talking months or years?
That's the critical part. Capgemini's research shows that organizations with proper AI-led architecture, essentially strategic governance frameworks, achieve ROI within 6 to 9 months. But here's the catch. Ad hoc deployments without that framework averaged 14 to 18 months. So the speed to value really depends on how deliberately you approach it.
So there's a real difference between having a strategy and just throwing AI at a problem. That makes sense. Now, we mentioned Utrecht specifically in the title. Is there something unique about how enterprises in Utrecht or Europe are approaching this?
Good catch. One thing that's different in Europe is the regulatory landscape. The EU AI Act is coming into full effect around 2026, and that actually forces European organizations to think about AI governance differently than maybe some of their counterparts elsewhere. It's not just a nice-to-have, it's becoming a legal requirement.
So compliance and strategy aren't separate tracks. They're intertwined. What does that actually look like for an enterprise starting this journey? Are we talking about wholesale operational overhauls?
Not necessarily wholesale, but it does need to be thoughtful. AI agents can be deployed across multiple functions: customer service, Yes, but also internal workflows, supply chain coordination, even employee support. The key is that you're not just deploying technology, you're rethinking how work actually gets done across departments. You need guardrails, you need clear escalation paths, and you need to understand which decisions the agent can make autonomously and which need human oversight.
I like how you're framing this. It's not just a tech thing, it's an organizational thing. Before we wrap up, what would you say to an enterprise leader who's hearing about all this but feels like it's moving too fast? Should they be concerned?
Not concerned, but definitely motivated. The research from McKinsey shows that 67% of enterprise leaders already view AI agents as strategic assets rather than support tools. So this isn't some experimental thing anymore. It's becoming operational infrastructure. The real risk isn't moving too fast, it's moving too slowly and ending up behind competitors who've already captured the efficiency and revenue gains.
That's a pretty clear call to action. Sam, any final thought on what makes the difference between an organization that successfully implements this versus one that struggles?
Honestly, it comes down to architecture and governance. Have a clear framework before you start deploying. Understand your use cases, define your guardrails, plan for compliance, and think about how this changes your team structure. The technology is powerful, but it's not a silver bullet. The organizations that win are the ones that treat AI agents as a systemic change, not just a tool upgrade.
Excellent perspective. Listeners, if you want to dive deeper into Utrecht's approach, implementation strategies, and the EU AI Act compliance angle, head over to etherlink.ai and find the full article. Sam, thanks for breaking this down with such clarity.
Thanks, Alex. This is a transformational moment for enterprises, and I think we'll look back in a few years and see 2026 as the inflection point.
Well put. That's all for this episode of EtherLink AI Insights. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.